Hi, I'm Chanel. Authorities are warning people to be more sensible and prevent potential fires during the summer months. I spoke to Shaun Bostrom from the Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service and Shaun Gelling, the Uplands manager at the Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture.
Hi, I'm Shaun Gelling. I'm the Uplands manager at DEFA. I'm responsible for the Upland estate, and I've got an interest in protecting the wildlife and habitats.
And I'm Shaun Bostrom, Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service Prevention Department, with interest in reducing fires and also work in the community, helping more vulnerable people in the community.
On Saturday alone, there was a fire that required 30 firefighters and over 60,000 litres of water. Can you tell me a little bit about that incident?
Yes, we were called to it and quickly realised that we're going to need a lot of resources, as you've just said. And we were there for a good few hours, again, as you've reported. One of the issues with this, apart from the fact that it is detrimental to the environment and wildlife, is that it takes up a lot of resources which cost money in real money terms, but also environmental terms, because we're using fuel, we're using water that's been processed for drinking, and there's a lot of energy wasted there. On top of that, it reduces our resilience as a fire service, so we can't then respond as quickly as we needed to for other jobs that come up, which may be saving life.
Right. Now, Shaun, on the same day, DEFA had issued a warning to residents about the risks of wildfires. Just a few hours later to hear that there was a fire.
Yeah, that's happened before, funnily enough. So at DEFA we follow the UK guidance from the Met Office regarding wildfire index, and also information that comes through from the England and Wales Wildfire Forum, of which we're members. And so that basically follows weather patterns and vegetation moisture content, so we pretty much pick up on that, and we can tell. So we try and do media releases, and we put up warning signs in vulnerable spots in the uplands, and basically just warning people to be careful. And it's at this time of year, it's about protecting wildlife, livestock, and of course the environment in terms of carbon released from fires.
How dry is the land at the moment?
Yeah, so we were just discussing elsewhere outside. I've been working for DEFA in this sort of capacity for over 20 years now, and every few years we would worry about wildfire risk in the summer, but now it just seems every year. We're a month without significant rain. The peatlands are combustible, so it's not just vegetation now in the uplands that can go on fire. It's the very soil that supports the plant life up there. So it's a huge carbon store, and it's a big worry that if we had a fire, it could run for several thousand acres in the uplands, so that's why we want people to be really careful. In specific relation to peatlands, which is the vast majority of the uplands, so peat is organic soil, really, so it's made from compressed, wet plant material, so largely sphagnum moss, and it sequesters phenomenal amounts of carbon. There's far more carbon stored in the peatlands of the UK than there is in all of the woodland in the UK and Northern Europe. So they're very, very important habitats from a climate change perspective and resilience. But so an uplands perspective, they do ecosystem services. So healthy peatlands and peat bogs, they help to lower downstream flood risk, because they're basically large sponges when they're operating correctly, when they're functioning correctly, I should say. They help to filter our drinking water going into the reservoirs, so the better condition they're in, the less money MUA has to spend on filtration of getting out so organic materials. They support a wide array of endangered wildlife, so at the moment, we consider the Manx Uplands as being one of the most important sites in the British Isles for nesting hen harriers, but breeding curlew at the moment, and numerous other species. But the trouble is with the peatland is it's combustible. So when it dries out at this time of year, it's basically will go on fire, and it can release thousands and thousands of years of stored carbon, because under ideal conditions, peat forms at around about 1 millimetre per year. So if you think we've got places in the uplands and some lowland sites where the peat's several metres deep, that carbon's been there for an awful long time, and a fire could let it go in days, essentially.
what are some of the fire safety advice for people?
Sure. We know that these days the disposable barbecues are very, very popular. They're for sale in lots of supermarkets. And it's a shame because as a kid, my parents had a reusable barbecue. It folded together. It was made of stainless steel on short legs. And you used it, you let it cool down, you took it home with you, and you could use it again. And it's really no more effort than using one of these disposable ones. Further to that, it's a very rare occasion, but unfortunately in each of these rare occasions it often leads to these sort of fires. Somebody may say, oh, I'll just put it there. They may even intend to come back for it in a little while, and they turn their back and a fire starts because they've left it to cool, but they're still hot charcoal, very close to flammable vegetation. And so we're in many cases over the last few years, it has been disposable barbecues that have started these incidents. So just implore people to think about using them, how they use them, avoid using them if they can. Why not make a picnic, and take that along?
And what about controlled fires?
So there's no reason to have controlled fires in terms of what people call burning off or vegetation management at this time of year. That's a seasonal thing. There's a few different elements to it and a few different bits of legislation that cover it, but by and large, that's an activity that farms and land managers would carry out from September through to the end of February, and in the uplands the season's slightly longer. But those things are controlled. There are bits of legislation for that. At this time of year, it's wholly irresponsible to set fire to any vegetation, and it's not just the resource burden for the fire and rescue services. We've just got to think about wildlife. People get upset if they see somebody cutting a hedge at this time of year. Well, cutting a hedge is pretty bad, but nests of birds could still be further inside the hedges, but it goes on fire, that's everything scorched, and it's irresponsible.
What's some of the risks? To the climate, to the wildlife? Yeah,
well, so this is peak nesting time for birds and obviously all wildlife, and it's just eggs and nests would be gone, and fledglings that can't fly. It's very sad and, like I say, unnecessary.
And the climate impact?
Yeah, so the climate impact's really quite large. So initially, smaller fires would be issues just for the release of carbon from the vegetation burning. But if we had a fire in the uplands and the peat layer underneath the vegetation, underneath the heathland, were to catch fire, that's basically just pure fuel. And it's bone dry at the minute, and you can't really put it out. It just has to burn, and that's carbon that's been stored over many thousands of years. So we could plant all the trees we want, but also some irresponsible behaviour could lead to basically a release of thousands of years of stored carbon. Plant 1,000 trees tomorrow. That's not going to do anything compared to what could happen in a big fire. It's happening in the UK quite a lot now, and we're keen to try and stop it from happening here again. No,
definitely. Shaun, is it a worrying time for the fire service at the moment with the dry weather, with the heat?
It takes up an awful lot of people because the weather's hot. People then get tired, so we have to think about rotating crews. The majority of our employees are retained firefighters, so they've got their own businesses to run, obviously the families to go back to afterwards, and their daytime jobs too. And so it's a fine balance, attacking a fire, managing the incident, and on top of that, bearing in mind that I used the word resilience earlier, it's a case of dealing with it effectively and still being available to go to another one, and or RTCs and house fires and so on. So massive challenge for us, especially during the summer, because not only with the heat and the exhaustion, people are away on holiday as well. So we've got staff off, on leave as well. So lots of challenges.
What's some of the advice or tips that you guys may have for people?
Okay, well, just continuing on from the avoiding using the disposable barbecues, disposable of them responsibly. You take a big bottle of water that's just to put that out before you finish. Take it home. Take all your rubbish home. Another part of the fire service, we have a search team, and we go into the hills and we do exercises. and we often come back with bags of rubbish. Glass can start, broken glass can magnify the sun's rays. Again, rare, but when it happens, it's devastating. So please take all your rubbish home. Another one of the newer things we've been encouraging people to do is be very careful when parking cars in long, dry grass, because the underneath of the car, especially the catalytic converter, is hot enough to ignite the grass. And you can just imagine what happens then. You come back and your car's burnt out, as well as you're going to set fire to a field. So that, and the old be careful with discarding smoking materials, cigarettes and and matches, that sort of thing. That's been the advice for hundreds of years. So yeah.
Would you like to add?
Yeah, well, I just echo that. So on the DEFA estate, which is, lots of people use our estate, whether it's the forestry, glens or the uplands, our bylaws prohibit the use of camp stoves, campfires, barbecues. We occasionally give permission to organised groups, Duke of Edinburgh, supervised Duke of Edinburgh parties to use small stoves and likes, but basically the risk is just too high for us, and we haven't got the resources and the remote locations. So yeah, just be really sensible and just think twice about what you do, please.
Is the summer also a worrying time for DEFA as well?
Yeah. Like I said before, it seems more regular now. So obviously, clearly, we're starting to see the effects of climate change and these long dry spells. We've had them virtually every year for the last 5 years now. We're getting more concerned. We're putting our wildfire signs up, which is it's not a particularly easy job to do, to go and put a sign up to know that you might have to take it down again in a few weeks. And then I can't remember, it was last year, the year before, we only had them down a week and we had to put them up again for another extended period. But I think the message is getting through. We are seeing people on out in the uplands being a bit more responsible to these things. So let's hope everybody else follows suit.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.